Episode 5 is Ian Parfitt, who's a local business owner. In episode 5, Ian talks about his love of Everton, following Wales to Euro 2016 and the magnificence of Gareth Bale. Ian's interest in football was sparked in 1974 by the World Cup and Johan Cruyff. Club-wise, Ian started supporting Everton in 1978 when Bob Latchford scored 30 goals for them and scooped a £10,000 reward from a national newspaper for the feat. I hope you enjoy the episode. Episode 5, welcome Ian Parfitt.
Hello.
We've not actually met before, but I am very interested in your football journey, Ian, because Ryan has told me kind of all about Everton, Wales, any other teams? Kind of
yeah, I mean, I grew
teams?
up watching. I grew up watching Cardiff. My dad used to take me to Cardiff games from a young age. So Cardiff. Am I up on Cardiff? Up at Cardiff at they Premier League side 1 year and a Championship. They go down into the 3rd division.
Yeah.
I grew up when they were in the old 2nd division, which is the Championship now in England, and started watching them. So they were the first team I was watching.
Good. Okay. Right, I'm just going to get straight in my questions because we've got so much to get through in the next hour and a bit. There is literally so much to get through. I've been doing. It's good because I get to look into bits of football that I have no idea about.
Yeah, sure.
I start to learn a lot of things. So my first question, Ian, is:
excuse me.
How good of a football player were you as a kid?
Oh no. No, I was all right. I mean, I like local league and things like that. I was on Facebook a little while back and talking about our team that we used to have as the under-12s, and it was all a hard. I was talking to Colin Greenslade, who was our coach at the time, and Colin knew all the hardest boys in the school were in my under-12s team, all of them. Well, except me, obviously. But they but some of them could play.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We used to get hammered at certain times and stuff like that, but it was great fun. But Colin always used to play me either centre half or sometimes it was centre forward there, and he'll tell you that I was a great footballer, Colin. But
did you ever take it further than that?
No, I wasn't that good, mate. I was just local league, and all that, and I was. I enjoyed it. That was about it. That's all I can say about it, Lee. I enjoyed it. It was.
That's
great.
what's about at that age, mate. It's enjoyment.
Exactly. My time spent with football was good fun, and I went on to play. Basketball took over then for me.
Okay.
And I started playing basketball, and then went back to a little bit of football later on. But I was okay. But just local league. I mean, I ain't gonna pretend anything. So there you go.
Okay. Who's your favourite current player?
Do you know what, Lee? I've been thinking about this, and my youngest will kind of probably shout it out, if he's watching this podcast later on. But I do like Trossard for Arsenal.
Oh, right, that's a good one.
Do you know what? I always like watching him for Brighton. I always think creative, he was intelligent, he's running off the ball. When he picks up the ball, he can always slide a pass through.
Yeah.
And I just wondered why he was never at a better side when no one picked him up. And I was screaming out for Everton to pick him up.
Yes.
And he went to Arsenal, right, and now he's kind of in and out the team. They'll just bring him on, to kind of maybe change a game or whatever. But I could go the old cliched, route and things like that. But Trossard, I
that's
love
a very
watching.
different answer. I quite like that.
I love watching him.
He's a bit of a different player. He wouldn't fit into every team, I don't think.
No, that's right. Yeah.
And I think the teams that he does fit into, he just fits in like a glove.
Exactly.
It's just a little bit. I think he was what Arsenal were needing. That little creative spark in the middle. I don't think Havertz is the answer for them.
No, exactly.
And I think Trossard, you're getting double the player for half the money.
Yeah. And Brighton haven't done bad after him either.
No.
Beating Ajax, the other day. A tremendous little club now. They're the kind of club that you want as a fan to be supporting. So,
and you look at where they were 30 years ago, and you look at them now, and it's changed days for them
completely. Nice little ground. Good set of fans.
Yep.
And like you said, they were going through all that stuff with going into receivership. They
were
a few years back. A tremendous job that they're doing down there. All of them.
Yep.
From the top level in the board right the way through.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. What a great club.
Absolutely. Okay. What's your first game of football that you remember, Ian?
Oh, do you know what? If I was trying to wrap my brains before I got here, the first game my dad took me to see.
Yeah.
And I know it was Cardiff because he used to take me to quite a few games. He wasn't a big football fan himself. He was more into his rugby, but I was trying to wrap my brains and I couldn't think of it. But the first kind of football I can remember really watching and being enthralled by and kind of was the 74 World Cup.
Yep.
Watching that Dutch side, I was only about 7 or 8 at the time. 7 I would have been. I was watching that Dutch side, that 74, and honestly, the greatest side that never won a World Cup. They should have won both 74 and 78.
Yeah.
I know that's cliched, but that's probably the first time I really kind of took note of football.
Yeah.
And really, really went a bit nuts with football.
Were you the same as me as I could be kind of attracted to the kits and things like the bright orange and that? That's what I... No.
I did get my mum to put, in like at that time, she was getting cushion covers that were bright orange because I was that nuts at the start of the World Cup. It was all about Cruyff.
Yeah.
It was all about Cruyff. Just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just so elegant and graceful, and
that's it.
And you look at you look at clips of him now as well on YouTube and stuff like that, and some of the things that he was doing back then, like people can only dream of.
Absolutely.
And you talk about people will argue the toss as to whether players of the past, great players of the past like Pele, Maradona, Cruyff, and these kind of players could ever, are they as good as the players today? Well, that's difficult kind of to tell. But if they were given the same training, you're born with a gift.
Yeah.
And so then you can play in any era.
Absolutely.
But you'll if skills have come before you,
yep.
right, you'll learn them skills, you'll know those skills, you'll add a little bit to it. And so I think that players like those can play in any era.
I 100% agree with you. There's not one person today that would tell you that Maradona couldn't play today in his prime.
But what I'm saying is, back then,
yep.
he wouldn't necessarily struggle. But what I'm saying is if you put him in a league now,
yep.
he'd still be one of the top players. But you put him with all the advancements in technology, training methods, if he looked after himself, all
Absolutely.
this, which is down to the psychological and the science aspect of things. Yeah, he could play, and he'd be still up the top there.
See, kind of like looking back on that questioning, when you were kind of really getting into football in the 70s and 80s and things like that, was there these comparisons to the players of the 50s and 60s, these players coming through in the 70s, 80s, or these players wouldn't have, the players in the 50s and 60s wouldn't have made it in today's game like we do now?
No, I still think they would have. I mean, I don't know where there's a comparison. I was young in the 70s, but they still would. I'm sure, definitely. You look at the likes of Stanley Matthews, still played till he was 50, and
it's unbelievable.
Players like this, and his wing play, you'd see old clips of him now and you kind of go, it's old-fashioned style.
Yes.
But then you introduce it into the kind of modern era and kind of he's up on same things I just said a second ago.
I'm pretty sure he's your first Ballon d'Or winner in 1957 with Stanley Matthews.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
I've got kind of weird stats sticking about in my head all the time, and that's one of them. Okay. Number 4, favourite all-time player.
Yeah, I got 2 actually, but yeah, if I was to pick between the 2, I got George Best, which is bizarre because I'm an Evertonian, and Cruyff, no question. If I was to have to pick between the 2, I'd go for Cruyff because he was just. I think it was not just that; it was for what he won in the game. I get really kind of bit.
The player that made you fall in love with football.
Yeah, that was it. Player, 3 kind of European Cups, kind of. I think it was 71 to 73, was it not? And would have been, wouldn't it? 70 to 73 or so, something like that.
Yep.
Then Ballon d'Or winner, of course. All the things he won with Ajax and he won with with Barcelona, going on to do the things that he did. Yeah. Learning everything from Rinus Michels, who was the brilliant coach from that Dutch
Absolutely.
side. And then Guardiola taking on from there. But as a player, he just had that kind of finesse and that's the elegance about him. I don't like it when people talk about Best and say what a wasted career. He had 11 years at Man United.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Top level. He won a Ballon d'Or, European Cup, league titles. It's well documented about his drinking and that side of things, but what a player.
It's part of the culture at the time of the 60s and 70s.
That's the thing. Well, Cruyff smoked.
Yeah.
60 a day. Pretty much you could put that down to that's what he died from,
Yeah.
But, and then, best with the drinking. But they were just something else. And, Cruyff, just for what he actually achieved in the game with the 2 World Cups as well, finals, I mean, just unbelievable.
He's got a legacy that stands to this day. I coach kids playing football, and one of the first 5 skills a kid will learn as a kid is the Cruyff turn.
Yeah.
And it's still to this day. It's never changed the name. It's always the Cruyff turn, and that's a legacy. It's almost 60 years old now.
Oh yeah, and it brought out the first time obviously in '74, and you look at that clip now.
Yeah.
The guy thought he was his head was spinning around, wasn't it? Where's he gone? Like it was like a magic trick.
Yeah.
And you look at that now and it's phenomenal. But and everyone seems to be doing it now. It's just part of the game.
Yes.
And that's it. It's like all the kids trying to do the Zidane kind of little foot on the ball and
the Marseille turn.
Yeah, the Marseille turn. Then let's say as we call it. But it's all these kind of things. But I think with Cruyff and with Best as well. Mm-hmm. I love players that have got that finesse, elegance to the game. Yeah. They just glide past people rather than it's effortless. You got it with Zidane. You got it with Best. You got Bale. Exactly the same. All those 4 players. They just elegantly glide past people as though they're not even there. And I love watching that. It's absolutely stunning.
It's pure entertainment.
It really is, And you don't need all the flicks and tricks and stuff like that when you've got that ability.
Yeah.
Just slide past people.
And I think these are the kind of players, we spoke about this a few episodes ago, these are the kind of players you sit down and watch them. You don't really care who's playing. If they're playing, you'll watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't care what team they're playing for. You know that you're going to be entertained by this player.
Oh yeah, of course.
I think we've seen it most recently. For me, was Messi in the most recent World Cup. I didn't care who they were playing. I wasn't particularly fond of Argentina, but every time he got on the ball, he was just silky and smooth moved about the place. Like players like this, Maradona, Best, they control the pace. They take the pace of the game to themselves, and if they want to increase the pace of the game, they'll increase it. If they want to slow it down to their pace to suit themselves, and the whole game will change around that. And I think it takes a special player to be able to do something like that.
Definitely. Oh, they got that ability in them, I see a documentary a little while back, I'm not sure what I saw it on, but about Maradona's time in Italy. Yep. I don't know if you saw that when he went from Barcelona to Napoli.
Yep.
Yeah, and he went over to Napoli, and what a documentary that is. That's phenomenal. But he had that in him as well.
He's an absolute god in Italy, in Napoli.
He really is there, and at times they would support Argentina, and not Neapolitans, is it?
Yeah, that's whatever it is.
The people from Napoli, they would be supporting Argentina instead of Italy over certain moments. But no, he was phenomenal to watch as well. It's just a pity. These kind of players, we didn't see enough of them in this country, Cruyff and Maradona, and that because obviously we're playing in different leagues, continental leagues, and but yeah, I mean, you see enough of them to know that they're special,
and you kind of see it. You get to see plenty of them now.
That's the thing. Now that's a big difference, and that's why kind of Messi, Ronaldo, they're held up in high esteem, as they should be.
Yeah.
Because you get to see them week in, week out, day in, day out, and which you didn't do back then.
No, you're spoiled for choice now.
Yeah, definitely.
Number 5, in your opinion, what is the best ever kit?
Ever kit? I love playing kits. Mm-hmm. I gotta be honest, all the logos on them.
Yep.
And all this, I
not
just
a fan of the corporate bullshit.
Oh no, I'm really not. I mean, when all that started to come in, it started to kind of lose its interest for me, and that's why I stopped buying kits myself. But I don't know, just something really, really plain, effectively.
Do you want to know mine? My favourite kit, I think, is a Holland 88 kit. The orange with the black lion.
The garish one, you like the garish stuff, all that kind of, just all over the place. My youngest son, he kind of likes all that colour. Anything that looks garish, and from the late 80s to early 90s, right? He's on it like a rash.
Yeah,
because he saves kits and whatever, teams that he doesn't necessarily support, but he'll just go and buy the kit. He's got a wardrobe full.
Well, you actually took an Everton kit as your memorabilia.
I did.
That's a lovely kind of.
Bring it out. You can tell me. I don't think it's necessarily my favourite kit of all time.
Yeah,
but it holds great memories.
Yes.
So we got the the 84 FA Cup final kit there. So yeah, all's good memories for me. I was trying to, there's everything. I've had a few good kits of late, to be quite honest.
Yep.
I like the Chang one from a few years back.
It's quite nice, yeah.
I even like the Sport Pesa one that they had recently, which is very, very plain, very simple. They tended to come back a little bit, but I like the Leeds United kit from that early. If I'm talking kits, I like things that are plain white.
Yep.
Plain white kits, and something like the old Leeds United kit from the early 70s and whatever, because I grew up watching Leeds as well, and I did like that kit. So if I was to have a guess, I'd say I'm trying to think who the Hafnia kits from the 70s, the Everton kits from the 70s.
Yep.
Probably my favourite kits, along with that Leeds United kit from the early 70s. I'd say those two, definitely.
Brilliant. From that game, Ian, can you name the starting lineup for 1984 versus Watford?
I cannot, mate. I could give you the Cup Winners' Cup final team straight off, but I'll have it a guess. Look, it would. Let me have a look.
They played a 4-3-3.
A 4-3-3. So you're going to have Neville Southall in goals to start
Yes.
with. I'm thinking Mountjoy would have been in the centre of defence at that time.
Yep.
Also with Ratcliffe.
Yep.
You'd have had. I'm thinking Pat Van den Hauwe come a little bit later. So I'm talking Pat Van den Hauwe on the left back, and you would have Gary Stevens at right back.
So Gary Stevens at right back, and you had Bailey at left back.
Bailey, yeah, of course, with the curly hair.
Yep.
Yeah, so you would have had Pat Van den Hauwe would have come into the 85 Cup Winners' Cup team. So Bailey was a good sign, to be quite honest. I think he came from Aston Villa, I think, Bailey at the time.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, curly-haired boy.
Who's your middle three?
Middle three. Bracewell come a little bit later. I used to like watching Bracewell, so
You did.
I would talk about. You're going to have Peter Reid is going to be in there.
You have brilliant player, my dad says.
Yeah, it was a fantastic player. I think where Maradona kind of made him look a bit of a fool in that tremendous goal
Didn't
he
do
scored.
injustice, did it?
Didn't do injustice. He looked like he never had any legs, didn't he? Bless him. But he was a phenomenal player. His ability on the ball, but also his tackling ability in that midfield was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
He glued it all together and held it there. We got. Let me have a look now. So you would have had. I'm thinking Andy Gray Andy Gray or Sharp would have been up front, but I mean,
you had three kind of. You had two up front, and then you had kind of one playing the 10 or the 8.
right. So that would have been Adrian Heath.
That was, yeah.
Inchy Heath, right? Once again, brilliant player. Don't get the credit we got.
It was almost a diamond they were playing.
Yeah. So
you're missing your right midfielder, your left midfielder, and
I'm missing a lot there, now. So we'd have Gary Stevens up on the wing. You would have, maybe Kevin Sheedy on the left.
No, it was
he came a little bit
Richardson.
later. Kevin Richardson.
Yeah.
Kevin Richardson was more of used and utilised as a utility player.
Yes.
And after Richardson, before Richardson, so Alan Harper.
No, so we've got Southall, Stevens, Ratcliffe, Mountfield, Bailey, Reid, Stephen, Richardson, Heath, Sharp, and Gray.
Heath, Sharp, and Gray. I said Gray and Sharp, but I said they might be alternating. But when you said it was a kind of like a diamond effect up the top, Inchy, Heath, and then we got Sharp and Gray. So that makes sense.
League and Cup double that year.
That was 85. We got the 85. We got the league size of 84, 85. So the 85 team was a brilliant team as well. We just lost out Man United in a 1-0. 1-0 to Man. 1-0.
Yeah.
We're down to 10 men. If I remember rightly, Man United had. It was one of their. I think not Albiston. Can't remember who the player was. They got sent off, and it was down to 10 men for quite a long time.
Okay.
And then it was the Irish lad, 17, 18-year-old Irish lad.
Norman Whiteside.
Norman Whiteside. There we go. Yeah.
Norman Whiteside took it onto the right side of the wing and just killed a beautiful ball into the bottom corner. Neville Southall outstretched arms, brilliant goal, mind you, and that scooped our double for that year. In fact, it would have been a treble.
Yeah.
Because we, just after that, we'd won a Cup Winners' Cup as well.
Yeah.
So 85, that would have been a treble apart from normal White Sky's goal.
I think Whiteside to this day is the youngest ever player to play at a World Cup.
Yep, that's true. Yeah. Oh, he was phenomenal there. But 26. What, he was retired at 26, something like that. I think.
Very young. I think he was. We spoke about Rooney previously. I think he was one of these players. I don't know too much about Norman Whiteside. Just going for my own. That was just used far too often, too young, and just by the time they reached 24, 25, their career's done.
Yeah.
I feel the same with Rooney. By the time he'd reached 28, 29, his career was done because he'd been the main man since 16. It's a lot of pressure to take for 15 years,
exactly, yeah. Well, Norman Whiteside, he actually ended up at Everton.
Okay.
I don't think many people kind of realise that or know that, but I mean, his last season or so was at Everton, I think, if I remember rightly. He was shot then.
Yeah.
His knees had gone. He was holding a lot of pain, discomfort, and so that. So he was shot even about the age of 26, I think. And obviously the likes of Gaza and all that, come at the end of their career, and we had Ginola at the end of their career. We was a dumping ground at one stage for past it and over the hill players, just at the twilight of their career,
Wasn't there like a story about Gaza that he turned up for an Everton game and they had to send him home because he was steaming or something like that?
See, I remember him at Everton. I remember him at Middlesbrough.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him going to China for a little bit.
Lazio as well at some point as well, wasn't
and then he ended up at like a league third division club. It was like Grimsby or something like that.
He went to Burnley. He went to Burnley.
He went way down the leagues for a while.
Sure, he went to Burnley.
Yeah.
But I think Rangers got his best years out of him. And
definitely, yeah. I think you're right.
Rangers and Lazio, that was kind of his best period.
No, I think Rangers definitely got the best out of him at that period. But I remember seeing Gaza, watch Gaza for Everton versus Middlesbrough. When he went back, it was his first time back at Middlesbrough. And I watched him at the Riverside, and he just wound the crowd up constantly. Yeah. He was winding them up, but in an amusing way. And you could see they even at Newcastle, at Middlesbrough side, they had an affection for him.
Yeah.
I mean that simple little stuff that you see players doing now, when he put it out, just outside the quadrant, just to get him, get the crowd up and woo, what you doing, and he would do things like that just to get him up, and it was great to see. And you could see, even though they were giving him jip and stick, they still had that affection.
I think
for him
the game's missing it now.
Of course it is. Yeah, it's missing these. I heard you talking on one podcast a little while back about Mavericks.
Yeah,
and I think it misses. A Maverick is we're missing those kind of players. Yeah. There's plenty of them in the 70s.
Yes,
and 70s and 80s. There was just tons of them. From the likes of
every team had one.
Frank Worthington at Bolton to Stan Bowles at QPR, and these kind of players. Pretty much every team. We had came from Leeds, funny enough, which was we had Duncan McKenzie.
Okay,
and he was our Maverick, and every team had a Maverick player that just you loved. Loved, and the other players that were playing around him would kind of get wound up about, because they'd be playing their skins off, and running around the park and whatever, and the crowd would be kind of quite subdued, and obviously the Maverick player, like Duncan McKenzie, I mean, he said come on, and he wouldn't get a ball. You wouldn't see him touch a ball for about half an hour to the first 45 minutes, and all of a sudden he'd get a pass. He picked that ball up, and the crowd would just lift and go absolutely mental, and you could see the other players around him going, "Look, I've been running my skin off for the last half an hour." He picks a ball up, and you love him, and you're all screaming his name. And those times were fantastic for football then,
I think Celtic's Maverick in the 80s would have been kind of Frank McAvenny and things like that.
Yeah, no, you had McAvenny there. He liked to drink as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
McAvenny and that. But
some of the stories on that man are unbelievable.
Do you think that because football has become such like a business now, as we were mentioning with the kits earlier, it's not just a club anymore, it is like...
I'm going to go back to this, and I'll probably go back to this over the next couple of episodes. Look at how much shit Jack Grealish got in the summer for having a few drinks and getting drunk when Man City won the treble. He was a young lad out enjoying himself. He just achieved the biggest achievement of his career. Why shouldn't he go out and enjoy himself?
Oh no, of course, yeah, no, and Grealish is a phenomenal player, all that, but. I think you're exactly right. I think it's the money in the game. It is a business, and you're an asset to the club, and they don't want you damaging your health and things like that. But that's just the way the game's gone, and that's why I've kind of drifted away from the modern era and stuff like that. It's probably be about the first person you'll have on that'll say, no, I'm not that keen on football these days,
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're talking about Conor more of the.
It takes the character out of the game.
Well, I think it's
so.
like all these guys that we've mentioned, like Best and like Gaza and the likes, we're all working class guys, right? They were probably playing football in the streets, whereas now football being a massive institution, these kids are getting picked up and put into academies 7, 8 years old, and then
sometimes
the
younger.
money just comes straight away, right? And they're a brand rather than just a football player at that point.
Yeah, true. Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah,
absolutely. We talked, I think it was last episode, about kids that are on 15, 20 grand a week and they're 16 years old and they've never touched a first team football in their life. And, 20 grand a week, you used to have to be the best player in the team to get 20 grand a week.
Oh, of course, definitely. Not that long back.
Yeah. It's absolute madness. Okay.
They get down in the Lossy League. They got that in the Highland League. Lossy players are getting that. I know.
I've seen some of the monies that some of the clubs are paying at that level, and I'm like, oof,
really?
Yeah.
Oh God, there you go. Well, that says it all, then, doesn't it? Really,
it's some of the clubs in the Highland League are outpaying what Elgin City and things are paying just because of financial backing and that. I'm not saying Elgin don't have financial backing. Elgin have got a stable backing, and I'd prefer that for my club. But some of these oil tycoons,
if you look at like Cove Rangers, they just went from Highland League and just leapfrogged Elgin now, haven't they? Yeah.
I mean, when you get these clubs coming in now, like Edinburgh City as well, up in Scotland as well, just jumping up the league as well.
Yep.
So obviously they've
new start clubs and things like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Just need somebody with a bit of money behind them to push them, and that's all it takes.
That's the mental thing. It's not just happening in like the Premier League now.
No.
It's happening at all levels of football.
All levels of football.
Salford, Crawley, back in the day when they got investment.
Look at Wrexham. And
yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I'm really enjoying the story of Wrexham just now because I think for historic a football club as that is, they need to be pushing as far as they can, and for what these guys to get a great run. And I do enjoy the documentary. I've been watching that religiously, but I just think, without the money, they're never getting there.
And of course, like you had it up here with Gretna at one stage as well. And when Gretna went on to win the cup, and what happened to them?
Miles Jacobson, the owner, died, and they just.
That was it. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
because the backing had gone.
That's
the
it.
money in the backing had gone, so it just straight back down, like
crazy,
crazy stuff. Yeah,
Hearts as well.
As well.
Wasn't the Hearts owner saying he wanted Hearts to win the Champions League? So I think
the Hearts owner
far.
owned the only bank in Lithuania and was financing Hearts through Lithuanian people's money.
Oofed.
So
that's right, because in the mid 2000s, wasn't it? They had a lot of Lithuanian players.
I listened to a podcast with Stephen Presley, and he says one pre-season 70 foreigners turned up for pre-season, Lithuanians mostly, and they had a new manager every 3 months, and it's like, how can you build stability in a club doing that? You can't.
Yeah.
Number 6, Ian, best player you've seen in the flesh.
Bale, no question.
Yeah,
no question of that. Oh, what a
talent!
Oh, just unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, and what he did for Welsh football, just took us to not even the next level, a completely different level on a completely different planet to anything I'd ever seen before. I've seen Bale a few times now. We was in the Euros, in 2016. Myself, my youngest son and wife, we went over to France. Yep. We saw the opening game against Slovakia where he scored that little sent the keeper the wrong way on the free kick. And we went and saw. We were lucky enough to. We didn't get up north to the England game. We watched that in a pub in Montauban, we watched the Russian game. We were at the Russian game in Toulouse when we absolutely destroyed Russia 3-0. And just everything he did in his career. I don't care what Real Madrid fans say about, he's was it Wales Golf Madrid? No, he put everything into that club as well.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal. I can't say enough.
I always go back to I like to take back to before his Real Madrid days. That performance for Spurs against Inter Milan in the Champions League
ruined Maicon.
He absolutely ruined him, and goals. All the goals were pretty much similar. The same. It just the pace, the power, the strength to get past Maicon as well. Who actually was at the time classed as one of the best, if not the best, right back in the world.
I'd say so.
Just won the Champions League, had he not with Inter Milan?
That's right. Yeah, because when Mourinho was at Inter, and he just destroyed him, made him look Absolutely ridiculous. A little bit like Maradona with Peter Reid in '86. He was just unplayable that night.
Yep.
And that coming from a left wing back role as well, just tremendous. And then you can see why Harry Redknapp kind of moved him and pushed him up further up front, which got him that move to Real Madrid. But at times that year before he went to before he went to Madrid, just unplayable at times. You watch all clips of that.
I think 25 goals that season, something like that.
Yeah, and every single one of them was out of this world.
Just brilliant. I mean, and even in his first season or so at Madrid, that goal against Barcelona in the Copa del Rey final where he run out of the pitch and back in. That's just iconic.
Yes.
And I think what Madrid fans is that sometimes he was winning games on his own. When Ronaldo was out for for a while as well. He picked that team up by the scruff of his neck. And he was winning finals on his own.
Came on and changed that Champions League final.
Changed that game. World Club semi-final. They wouldn't have got through to the World Club final. Real Madrid, if it hadn't been for Bale. And I think Ronaldo was out at that time. And he took them up, picked them up by the scruff of the neck, and dragged them through that game. But never just dragged them through. He dominated. Dominated. You look at when he come on in a game against Liverpool, and those two goals. It was a dead game. It was a dead squib of a game. He comes on and changes it.
Yep.
That second, was it a second goal? Wasn't it with the overhead kick?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He was a bit lucky. Got a little bit lucky with the one that went under Karius. But that second one,
even the Atletico Madrid one, right? He scored in that game with a header. I know they went on to win 4-1, but big moments in it.
Big moments.
Goals
big
change
player.
games, and he's a special moment kind of player.
So when they talk about it's you even see all of that when they had the flag up, the Welsh flag with it was done tongue in cheek because of the media kind of giving him so much banter. But who on earth can take that kind of seriously?
No, exactly.
Well, the Madrid fans did, but then they only took it seriously because of the media again in Spain.
Yep.
That's it. They love to wind people up, don't they, the media? But you can't absolutely fault them. And then ridiculous to go on to LA and do what he did in the final game of that final as well. And you just knew it. You're watching the game. I don't know if you saw the game. Did you that final game?
I've seen the highlights. Yeah.
Just ridiculous. I mean, like you're thinking, we're all getting a bit of wound up, like as Welsh fans. Is he going to get on? Is he going to get a game? And he comes on and does that and win. Gets the one that gets him onto the was it onto the penalties or was it onto the extra time?
I have a feeling they might go straight to penalties.
I think he went straight to penalties, didn't it? Yeah, and he scored the equalising goal there right in the final minutes, and you could predict it. You just knew it was going to happen. And he'd only been on the field about 5-10 minutes, so just knew it. Brilliant.
I remember that it was a World Cup qualifying game when Scotland played Wales, and we were in the lead, and Bale absolutely destroys it within the last 5 minutes, and the second goal was just
out of this world.
Yeah, there was part of that season where he was just scoring them for fun every week for Tottenham. But
and some of the moments that he gave us, as Welsh fans and the Welsh nation in truth in general,
and not a particularly strong Wales team either.
No, but have we ever had a strong Wales team? I can look back from the days of yore, right back from the 70s, and we had strong teams, so to get us through to a semi-final of a major tournament like they did in 2016 was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Do you think he was Wales' biggest superstar? Even I know you had the likes of Mark Hughes and Ian Rush years
no
beforehand.
Question. Yeah. Of course you had Ian Rush, Ian Rush back in that. And honestly, if you ever watch Rush play, is leading the line and his defensive qualities at the start. He's the greatest player that I've ever seen with the leading the defensive line so high.
Yeah,
he would be running across the opposition's back. The energy of him, he was brilliant. I just used to love watching him, even as an Everton fan, watching him for Liverpool at that time. But he was a brilliant player and an unbelievable finisher, unbelievable. But yet. Still, and went on to play for Juventus. He only had a season there.
Yeah, he did.
Did you ever hear his quote about Juventus? They were asking him why he found it difficult, and he was like, "It was like living in a foreign country."
I went to a thing up at Lossy Mill Football Club a few years back, and it was Jan Mulby.
Oh wow!
And Jan Mulby was talking about him, and I said to Jan Mulby, I'm Welsh, but he was doing a talk anyway, and about Ian Russia, and he was saying he's the thickest player the thickest person I've ever met in my life. You know, he'd pick him up in North Wales to take him to the games, you know, where he lived at the time. And he'd say he'd drop off and say maybe get an ice cream or a drink on the way and be late for training and stuff like that when he picked him up because he'd need to get this. But I also asked Jan Mulby, who was the, I said, look, I'm an Everton fan as well as a Welshman. And I said, and Neville Southall is one of my heroes. And I said, you compare Neville Southall, I know we're going off a tangent there, but you compare Neville Southall to Grobbelaar at the time. You played with Grobbelaar. And this is a guy that played with Cruyff at the end of it as well. Jan Mulby played in the Feyenoord side with Cruyff. And I said to, I said, was it Ajax? It might have been Ajax when he came back. But I said to Mulby, I said, out of those two, and the first words out of his mouth was he said, Neville Southall is the greatest British player I've ever played against. He's the best player I've ever played against. And this is a guy that like played probably against Cruyff or with Cruyff, but and all that. Yeah. That's how good Southall was. So we've had brilliant players and iconic players like that, and even Pele put he's got a FIFA 100 list.
Yes.
Which is a contentious thing. That's the greatest players of the 20th century, and Neville Southall comes in about 96 or 98 in that.
Yep.
Of the greatest players. He won the Football Writers Award, which had never been, and even to this day, had never been given to a goalkeeper in '85 as well. That's how good the man is, and was, for me, greatest goalkeeper.
Very long career as well.
And so we've had players like that. We've had tremendous players throughout out the years, not just as Everton players, but like you mentioned, Mark Hughes and players like that. But nothing compares to Bale. Yeah, nothing. Just for the iconic status he has in Wales in general, and what he's won in the game also.
Yeah,
just nothing.
Just before we wrap up on Bale, what's your favourite Gareth Bale moment? I imagine it would obviously be a Wales.
For me, being at that it was the opener at Slovakia. That goal, where he just, but. That's something because I was there, and it was our reaction to it. The first time Wales had gone to a major tournament since 1958. We were there, we were watching it, and it was the opposite side of the ground where we sat. We had brilliant seats as well, but opposite side of the ground. And to see that go in and be there with my son and my wife and jumping up and down and hugging each other, it was just phenomenal, just brilliant.
That's what football's for.
It's just it's those moments, and those moments that you'll never forget, and the joy that's created from phenomenal time in my life at that time, and one of the best times in my life. Spending that time, that 2 weeks or so with with my family, watching arguably the greatest player that Wales has seen, the best team we've ever had, in a setting where it was gorgeous weather, and the people of France were brilliant at the time as well. The French people, they were phenomenal. He took to the Welsh fans. Like nothing else, and then going on to beat Russia, and just
unbelievable.
So that opener at Slovakia, Bordeaux, seeing Bordeaux and Toulouse red. I mean, completely red. You drove into Bordeaux, and it was just a sea of red. That's all you could see. It's just unbelievable. In football, we see it in rugby all the time, but in football, nothing like that.
Okay, I've got one more question before we move on to some more Everton chat and more Wales chat. Ian, I've got loads. I've got absolutely loads, mate. Have you ever met a pro?
A couple. I met Frank Lampard, funny enough, outside the... he used to live in Chadwell Heath, which is a district of Romford, and... He used to work opposite the Golden Lion pub at the bottom of the marketplace in Romford. And we were sat outside this pub once, and then Frank Lampard just strolled past and just started chatting, and he was chatting away. And I'd met him down at the football ground, because in them days because I used to live a few streets over from the training ground in Chadwell Heath. And we'd used to get over to watch all the players training, like, Lampard and Michael Carrick, Rio Ferdinand, Joey Cole. And it was in the days before now over there. I've been over there, not recently, but a few years back. They got big boards up to stop people from watching. But you could see them training and stuff like that.
You've probably got Leeds to thank for that.
That's true. The spine incident. But I used to eat and outside and we was chatting away to him and stuff like that. I just came across as a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Nothing arrogant about him or anything like that, not when we met him. And so it was Lampard, but I'd met him at a football ground before. He had a picture taken with my eldest boy. I got pictures at home somewhere. I just couldn't find it to bring him here today. And he seemed nice enough. But what Lampard would do is over at the training ground when we used to watch him. So I've met quite a few players over at West Ham, and stuff like that. Harry Redknapp as well, pictures taken with my son. We used to watch Lampard train, and you could guarantee that after training, he would always pick on one of the youth team players, the goalkeeper, youth team goalkeeper, and he'd put him in goal, and he would be pinging free kicks in, constantly and stuff like that. The actual strength of character, to train, and his workload and work rate was something I'd never seen before. He'd be there for an hour, pinning balls at the youth goalkeeper and stuff like that, tipping down with rain. So you just knew he was going to go on to, big things, and he don't come much bigger and higher than what he achieved in the game.
One of the greatest English midfielders of all time.
Yeah, of course. So they met him, but just in passing, really, certain things. But really
not so many fond memories of him as a manager, though.
I don't think any Everton manager of late has been given a good run of the game, but got a good rub of the dice there, let's say. But I don't know. He did as good a job as anyone else that I've seen over recent years. To be quite honest, he keeps swapping managers like they're going out of fashion. It was inevitable, wasn't it? At the end of the day, you got to give Dyche a run now.
Yes, I think Dyche. I've always held a high opinion of Sean Dyche.
You got to give him a run. See how it goes. He's swapping and changing managers all the time. It's not good. It's just not good at all. It's not good for the team.
No.
If you listen on social media now to Everton fans, the negativity from Everton fans is not quite at epidemic levels, but you're going back a few months, epidemic levels on that. It's just you just come on, give someone a chance, and whatever. But the negativity, and I never used to see it back in the 70s, 80s, even in the 90s when we had a shocking team at certain times in the 90s. Especially around about, was it 84, I think, where we almost went down in the last final game to Wimbledon. We won 3-2. Even the negativity back then was nothing like it is now. No. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And so give him a run, see what he can do, and all that. But it's all dependent now whether we get this 12-point deduction for financial irregularities.
I think if Everton are looking at a 12-point, I think Man City are probably looking at the conference, if that's the case.
Well, that's what the Everton fans have been saying. If we're looking at 12 points, they've got to be looking at 1,000 points. They're never coming back up again. So you got to be fair.
No.
You got to be fair. So, yeah.
Okay, Ian, thank you. I like to get in depth for these questions.
No problem.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm going to just ask you a couple of quick ones before we get into kind of more Wales and Everton. I'll always try and relate this podcast back to Celtic if I can. Can you give me your opinion on John Hartson?
Oh, John Hartson. At Celtic, I'll tell you a little story now. Yeah. So at Celtic, he was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. I mean, at the time you had Larson there as well. So Larson and Hartson together, it was a great team. Brilliant team, and once again, strength, power. I remember him coming from Luton to Arsenal. What was it, about 96, was it, something like that?
Yes, it was.
And he was, I think it was 1.9 million at the time, which was the highest paid price for a for a British teenager.
Yep.
And he did a great job for Arsenal. I saw him over at West Ham. I saw him train him over at West Ham, and I was only living a few doors away with that famous Isle Berkovic incident where he wallied him straight in the face, and it was all in the news the next day. So I have seen Hartson training and stuff like it and that in the flesh.
It was ironic they both ended up at Celtic.
Yeah, it was ironic, at different times. And obviously, Berkovic as well. Isle Berkovic was a tremendous player for Celtic as well. But no, at Celtic, that was his most productive time in there. He's a great player for Wales as well. You know, his head and ability was second to none. I have actually not met, but we was actually sat alongside John Hartson in Bordeaux in the Euros when we was having some lunch.
Wow.
Myself and the family and all that. And also Ian Rush as well. That was in Toulouse.
Yep.
We sat on the next table from Ian Rush in a restaurant. We sat outside. So, you know, I haven't met them. It was like going over to them now. They're with their family, see, you know, because they was on the I don't know about Rush, but I know Hartson was on the commentary teams and stuff like that for that. So, you know, you're with your family. You don't want to be interrupted at that those moments in time. So we never did all that.
Yep.
That bit. But you know, he was a phenomenal player, and his head and ability was second to none. And
brilliant man in there.
I think they had a great little combination, Larson Hartson at that time.
Larson, Hartson, and Sutton would be in there as well.
Yeah, Chris Sutton as well was in there as well. Yeah, of course. What a tremendous.
It's a front three.
Front three. I mean, you know,
for Scottish football, that's
high European standards, like you know, set there. But no, Hartson was a great player for Wales as well. So
Joe Ledley.
Brilliant. I mean, I saw Ledley in the Euros, and he was. I say he was coming back from injury. I think he was still injured, to be quite honest. I mean, and you see him on a pitch. I think he was at the Russia game that we watched, and he's everywhere.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, and this was a guy that was like, I mean, he was pretty much hobbling around most of the time and all that. We really heavily relied on him, and so it was Ledley. Obviously, he's a Cardiff, you know, big Cardiff, player at the time as well, so the fans love him down in the capital there. So no, I can't say anything bad about Ledley. I think he's a brilliant player,
cracking player,
and he was a cracking player up here as well. When he was good at Crystal Palace as well. He was a good player down there.
I didn't expect him to do as well as he did. I thought he was kind of done after Celtic, and he moved on to Crystal Palace, and he'd actually done quite well.
He did a great job down there. So. But yeah, injury prone towards the end of his career. That's why I don't think Wales got the best of him towards the end, obviously. But I'm saying, watching that performance against Russia, when he's nobbled pretty much, when he's hobbling around and all that, you know, God, if we had got the best of him, Jesus.
Could have been something. You also had Aaron Ramsey in the middle at the same time.
Well, Ramsey got into the team of the tournament, didn't he? Ramsey in that one. Absolutely phenomenal. And then he went and did great things for Rangers. You know, I thought I'd just plug that one in for you, mate. You know,
I love that, mate. I love that.
He was stepping up for that penalty, and my son and I were watching it, and we were so excited about Ramsey coming on. Ramsey's coming on, brilliant. He's going to get on and whatever, show what he's worth. And you just knew it when you were stepping up for that penalty.
We've all said this.
I just knew it.
Yeah.
And being Welsh as well, and love Aaron Ramsey, absolutely love him. Right, and just watching that, and you're going, he's gonna cock this up. And it was the worst penalty you've ever seen in your life. It was awful. And what a way to finish at Rangers. Because I was thinking, that's such a shame for the lad. Because he's a big hero in Wales also, and he's been tremendous for us. And
cracking player for Arsenal.
Cracking player, but and just everywhere on his day, box to box midfielder, just everywhere, and just thought, he's gonna have a.
Did you ever hear about the Aaron Ramsey curse?
Yeah, I've heard about that. Someone dies after he scores a goal. Yeah, and is it a thing? Because it just seems to be it's pretty regular.
It's very strange. Like it is very strange. Okay, so I'm going to ask you about a few cult heroes about Everton, and then I'm going to kind of go back to Everton of the 80s because I got a lot of information. My dad's very forgetful, but if you give him like a subject, he'll just bang, bang, bang.
He's the same as me then. It's an age thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's definitely.
It's slowly drifting away, but he does have quite a lot of useful information. So, couple of cult heroes, Everton, Wayne Rooney.
Rooney, cult hero. I don't know. I suppose you could class him as a cult hero.
Not the first time, but when he went back, he was certainly.
Yeah, I mean, they did hold him up as kind of, a prodigal son returning, but it was right at the end of his career. He wouldn't really have gone back there in the past team. Say he was in the team of the 80s. Yep. He wouldn't have got back in that side. Not at that time, because of he's on the Dwayne. And that. But then he goes and scores from the halfway line and things like this, so you kind of look at it and you just go, well, he's still got that ability and he's still got that kind of stuff in him. So yeah, I mean, I suppose he was held up as a cult hero at the end of his career. He certainly turned it around because he was absolutely hated by Evertonians.
There was no love lost, was there? Because he would come back and he would kiss like the United badge and all that type of stuff.
So for someone that always, once a blue, always a blue. I mean, that was a thing as well, and doing that kind of stuff. I think as well it was how he left. He left. Leaves on deadline right at there when forced his way out. We probably could have got more money for him if it'd been a little bit earlier in the transfer window as well. And I think that none of that kind of.
And then Alex Ferguson does the whole thing at the press conference with the little lads sign from the crowd. Please sign Rooney, and it's like this deal was happening months ago.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I think as well. Like it's the same reason or similar reason that Evertonians were on Ross Barkley's back. Yep. He could have gone in the January for big money. He wanted to hold out because he was injured at the time. So yet he wants to take the money. Absolutely. Takes the money, goes for something like 16 million, which is well undervalued for at the time. I think he was up for about 40 million or something like that. Ends up going for 16 million 6 months later when we haven't even got a game out of him because he's been injured all that time.
Yeah,
and that's the kind of reason that crowds get on players' backs and they leave under the cloud. And it was the same with Rooney. It was the same with Barkley. This kind of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, but cult heroes. I got
cult
a few
heroes. Thomas Rosiński,
brilliant, absolutely fantastic little player.
Canadian
little winger, Canadian winger. Oh yeah, we put him as one of those cult heroes. Yeah, definitely. He's a cracking little player. Nippy, speedy.
Scored a lot of goals as well.
He scored a lot of goals in a shocking side.
Yeah,
as well. A team that same with Kanchelskis. Kanchelskis, very similar players to Kanchelskis. Coming in, Anders Limpar, another one.
Yep.
Come from Arsenal, but all those three players coming in as wingers, and you thought when they came that that's pretty much them gone. Not so much in Radzinski, but Limpar and Kanchelskis. They're coming from big clubs like Man United and where they're winning league titles and stuff like that. Over to Everton where they're not great, and then Limpar as well from Arsenal.
Yep.
Through. But yeah, cracking players. But yeah, Radzinski was brilliant for us. Yeah. Superb.
Thomas Gravesen.
Well, there's a story with Gravesen, isn't it?
There's about 50 stories on Gravesen.
That Gravesen story when he went to Real Madrid. He left us, went for Real Madrid. Definitely a cult hero. Gravesen, no question.
Have you heard his Celtic stories? They're unbelievable, mate.
Well, the one main one with Everton was, he was because we had two bold midfield players at the time. We had Lee Carsley and we had Gravesen. And Real Madrid gone confused and picked the wrong one, didn't they? That's the one, So, I mean, he went for 2 million. I think it was 2 million. He went over to Madrid for, and he. Irony is he actually was playing games, and he was playing well, in a team that was full of like
Guti and all that,
these what they call them over there,
Galacticos,
a team full of Galacticos, and you got Gravesen in the middle there. It's like he's just been dropped down from somewhere else. It was fascinating.
There's a good compilation of Gravesen stories on YouTube. Open Goal do it, and it's stories of him being in the reserve team at Celtic. He's quite chuffed to be in the reserve team because he doesn't have to do training or anything like that. But he gets into a pool team and he's like telling them all he can't play pool and that. And the next day he's turning up with £1,000 pool queue and taking all the youth players' monies and stuff like that.
Oh no, it's all that. That's exactly Gavin. Because I mean, he's kind of like an entrepreneur now, and he's like lots of money.
50 million he's worth
50 million. Yeah, he's one of the biggest.
Number 2 Call of Duty player in the world as well.
That's what I mean. It's mad, isn't it? But no, he was a good player. The boy could play.
Yeah, I agree.
Otherwise, there's no way he would have been picked up for Real Madrid. But he was kind of like a blocking off play and stuff like that. He was a spoiler.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he was a good player.
There's a story of the centre midfield there, Ferry, that played for Celtic in the youth reserves. And he's playing centre mid with Gravesen, and he's turned around to his defence to take the ball. He's opened up to look to see Gravesen. Gravesen is way over in the corner, flag of the left wing, and he's shouting for the ball. he's shouting for the ball, and he's like, how am I meant to pass you? And he says, look, if you can't pass me out there, how are you going to play for the Celtic first team? The guy's 90 yards away from him. Like.
Oh, he's mad, yeah.
But, okay, and... So
there's some of your modern, modern cult heroes for me. Those ones there you go.
I looked through a few forums and I'm looking for cult hero names, and these are the ones that come up that fans are not maybe particularly remembered for great times at the club, but they're just remembered and maybe had the odd magical game that they'll remember for.
We had quite a few earlier than that. I've mentioned one already. Duncan McKenzie came from Leeds to Everton, and like I said, the crowd's calling out his name when he's been missing for kind of most of the game, and all of a sudden he picks up the ball. Those kind of players. I'd even put Andy Gray in as a cult hero, because he came right at the end of his career to Everton, and then goes on to win the Winners' Cup and a league title and things like that, and the things he did for us. But that boy. One of the first £1 million players. I think Trevor Francis was the first £1 million player.
Trevor Francis was.
And he was one of the first 3 of the £1 million players. But Andy Gray, he was at Wolves at the time, moved from Wolves to Aston Villa, if I remember rightly, as a £1 million transfer. But at the end of his career there, where that boy wouldn't put his head. I mean, the diving headed against Bayern Munich in the semi-finals of the Cup Winners' Cup, where he was this low off the ground.
Yes.
And he just threw his head in with flying boots everywhere. Phenomenal. What a cult hero. Brilliant player, but I think he's held up as a cult hero as well, for those kind of things.
Proper centre forward.
Proper centre forward. Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
I think he was 6'2", 6'3", built.
Yeah.
Solidly built. Oh, yeah. You're not beating him in the air.
No, he was unbelievable. Unbelievable talent. So.
We're going to kind of go back, because when I spoke to you initially, you'd mentioned someone called Bob Latchford to me.
Yeah.
And this is how you got basically sparked interest in football.
Oh, Bob Latchford.
In Everton, sorry.
When you talk about cult heroes, Latchford is definitely a cult hero. Bob Latchford went from, I think it was Birmingham City. He got Bob from Birmingham City. He moved over to Everton, and he...
we're at 56 minutes, but we've got like a 15-minute overlay, so I'll give you a shout when it's the hour.
Sorry.
Yeah. No problem at all. No, Bob Latchford. I'm trying to remember the time that I actually started supporting Everton, but I think it was around about that 77, 78 season, because I remember Andy King scoring the winning goal in the Merseyside derby. And but I remember watching that and already being an Everton fan.
Yes.
But I've always said to people that it was Bob Latchford getting 30 goals in a season, that 78 season, that was the spark for me being an Everton fan. But I think I was an Everton fan prior to that. But Bob Latchford, talking about that, all Everton fans remember the 78 season for that 30 goal thing. What it was, a national newspaper was putting out a 10,000 reward for the first player in any team, obviously in the first division, which is Premier League now, to score 30 goals. And Bob Latchford scored 30 goals that season. And he got into the England side then. I don't think Bob Latchford's...
I done the numeration. It's about £120,000 these days.
Yeah, really, yeah. And I don't think... he got into the England side then. Actually, he was in the game of the programme that my first Wales game was against England in the home championships.
The one from St.
That's the
Ninian
programme,
Park.
yeah. And Latchford was in the England team for that game, but I think he only played about seven games for England. Some big players playing at that time. But yeah, I think he's more of a cult hero from that perspective, because he wasn't a regular in the England international, but he was a big player for Everton.
Yep.
And we come third in the league that year in 78, and he really sparked my interest. But what a brilliant player! I mean, I gave you earlier on today that the other day I should say, the team, my team really favourite players and things like that. And I've got Best along the top 3 there. I've got Best, I've got Cruyff. Just playing off Bob Latchford right up front, But I could have had any one of a number of players. I thought, put Latchford in because he was my first real hero, along with Andy King. Yep. They were my first real heroes, but Latchford was a tremendous player. I could have had Graham Sharp in there. I could have had Andy Gray.
Yep.
These kind of players. Even Duncan Ferguson. I love Duncan Ferguson, but yeah, got to be Latchford.
Well, speaking to my dad about kind of 70s and 80s Everton, the person he mentioned most to me was Howard Kendall.
What can you say about him?
My dad compared him. He says, "Is there any comparison to a manager?" And he says, if Eddie Howe continues what he's doing for the next 5 years, he says that'll be your comparison. He says he just goes about his business quietly, gets the job done, on to the next game.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
He was a brilliant player for Everton, Kendall. He was in the what we class as the Holy Trinity back in the 60s. Kendall, Ball and Harvey. Alan Ball.
Yeah.
World Cup winner with England. What's not been said about Alan Ball, like, the greatest players that's ever lived, and that's a fact. There's nothing like that. But, he had the Holy Trinity of Colin Harvey and Howard Kendall as well. So he was already, he'd won a league title. He'd won 66, we'd won the FA Cup. 68, we was in the FA Cup again against West Brom, where we lost that. 70, then he goes on and wins the league with Everton, and then takes over as manager. So he came back as a player.
Yeah.
Back in the early 80s, he came back as a player manager.
Yes.
Didn't last long as in a player role, and then went on to be a manager. I think it was must have been around 82, 83. I think he came in about 82. I think he came in. 83. Then you could see the team developing.
Yes.
And some of the players he was bringing in, like Peter Reid from Bolton. No one had really looked at Peter Reid or anything like that. He brought in, Neville Southall from, if I remember rightly, it was somewhere like Bury or somewhere like that,
Yep.
or someone up like that. And, all these players that people had never really heard of, and gelled and moulded this team from nothing.
Yes.
He brought down Graham Sharp from, from Scotland. I'm trying to figure out who Graham Sharp was. Dundee United, was it?
I think it was Dundee United when I was looking, but I could be wrong
Dundee
on that.
United, I think it was. Yeah, and he brought these players no one ever heard of, and knitted this team. And we went into the FA Cup final in '84 against Watford, and we were favourites.
Yes.
And 2-0, 2-0 win there. That's the first trophy that I remember since I started watching Everton. And then went on to that golden era.
100,000 at Wembley that day.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? And went on to watch, like that great team of that 80s growing, and whatever. And if it hadn't been for Liverpool,
yep.
and it hadn't been for, and I'm not saying Liverpool were a better side at that time, but if it hadn't been for Liverpool there, we would have won so much more.
Yeah.
And on top of that, then, with the Heysel incident, stadium incident, there, Kendall's took us through that period as well to start with. And then he left in after the 87. We won the league in 85 with Kendall.
Yes.
We were in the 85 Cup Winners' Cup final, where we won that European Cup Winners' Cup. We was in the final of the FA Cup, like I say, the following year, 84. We went into 85.
Yep.
Just lost out briefly to Man United. We were in the 86. Race for the championship, just lost out to Liverpool, and then for the double, we lost to them 3-1 in the FA Cup final. Gary Lineker playing at the time for us, and then the Heysel Stadium incident happened in 85, Juventus versus Liverpool, and that scuppered the money coming in because of the European competition for 6 to 8 years or whatever, and that's when the players started to drift.
Yeah,
but we lost Lineker, and we still managed to win the league in 87.
Yeah,
and get through to the FA Cup final in 89. Kendall went in 88. He went on to manage Atletico Bilbao out there for the period. Not really that productive. And then he came back, and he's had 3 spells with Everton. But if we look at him at the spell, that period, just unbelievable. I mean, you couldn't, his decision making, of when to bring on a player, who to buy at those particular times as well, and how his manner, like your dad said, the way he went around things quietly, just look at the next game, go on to win that one, he's just something else. And so that is an Everton hero. That is the greatest Everton hero.
Yeah.
The fans, every fan will tell you that.
He seemed to say to me that they weren't flashy, they were just fundamentally good.
They were good. And an unfashionable team.
Yeah.
Everton have always been an unfashionable club. They're an unfashionable team. If they were to Liverpool, they would have got more plaudits and credits for that team.
Yes.
Gary Lineker, like I said to you earlier, Lee, he went on, I've seen him on record as saying that Everton team are the best team he ever played for. Yeah. And this is a guy who went on to play for Barcelona, won an FA Cup final with a good Tottenham side
played
as well.
In big England teams and things like that. And he
said they were unplayable at times, and even Lineker says they were the best side at that time in the world, and yet Lineker never won a championship.
It's madness. Absolute
That's
madness.
the start of your 15 minutes, mate, if you want to get to the 11 and that.
Okay, let's go into your 11, Ian. So I'll run through it and then we'll pick it apart. In goals, you've got. So, what kind of formation would you call this? Would you call this?
Oh, just
okay. We'll just run through it. Southall, Gary Stevens, Franco Baresi, Kevin Ratcliffe, John Charles, Billy Bremner, Gareth Bale, Zinedine Zidane, which I'm absolutely buzzing to be speaking about, George Best, and Bob Latchford. So that is your 11.
We don't know. Let me have a look again. Where do we have Charles? Right. Okay. So
Charles just kind of as your defence. Just
these are kind of more my substitutes. And that. So we start off like first of all. I've said everything I need to say about Southall. I've said everything I need to sort of talk about Bale. But Franco Baresi, then let's say for argument's sake, everyone gives that side, that brilliant AC Milan side from the late 80s and early 90s. Everyone talks about Maldini, and rightly so. What an unbelievable talent, and to go that length of time in his career, phenomenal. But I always like watching Baresi, and I always liked him. I put him in, actually, it's not really widely used now. Very, very rare you'll see a sweeper role being put into place. And I used to love watching Franco Baresi in a sweeper role. And so that's why I put him in as a sweeper. Yep. So I got a sweeper in my formation there, And it was just, he wasn't just a spoiler, right? And you had the flair and that kind of elegance of Maldini and
Costa Carta as well.
Yeah, Costa Carta later on, But you had, with Baresi, you had this little Rottweiler of a kind of, looking guy, and whatever. But he would break it down, he'd just mop up everything. And he made Maldini look good.
Yeah.
Maldini was that good, but he made him look that good. I agree. And for that alone, just brilliant in there. John Charles is a player from the 50s, a Welsh player. That
was the only one my dad couldn't give me information on. He was like, nope. He says, I could tell you his bits, but I don't know.
John Charles, I'd say he was a cult hero, but he's more than a cult hero.
He played for Juventus, so.
Yeah, John Charles played for Juventus. He's actually called, he was a Juventus hero. He won Scudetto. He won a...
From my research on him, he was the first major British import out to a foreign nation.
Yes, he went. He was at Swansea. He was at Cardiff. He was at Leeds. Big spell at Leeds. But yeah, he's one of the biggest, greatest, Welsh footballing heroes. And they called him the gentle giant out there. And to this day, he's still held up as one of the greatest Juventus players of all time. He was one of our players in the 90s. I never saw John Charles, but I've seen enough of him and know enough about him to put him in there. 1958, Wales got through the quarterfinals of the World Cup. We only lost out to Brazil. We were the eventual winners there, with the likes of Ivor Allchurch and John Charles. And the difference with John Charles is he was played at centre half and centre forward. He could play both roles.
I love that.
So it's absolutely phenomenal. And I used to be a thing years ago. Last one I really remember playing those kind of roles was Dion Dublin. Funny enough.
Chris Sutton used to do it for Celtic.
Chris Sutton used to do it for Celtic. And he did as well. Yeah, you're right. He did. But yeah, John Charles would play at both roles, but he was world class at both roles. Mm-hmm. So like maybe Sutton would play in there.
Wasn't as strong at the back.
He would drop in there. No, this was a world class player in both roles.
That's unreal.
And he was up until Bale. Really, you could class John Charles as a great.
That's so rare. I don't think.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
I've never heard of that. Somebody. Yeah. I've heard of players playing both positions, but never been world class in both positions.
No, he's world class in both positions. And you look at old clips of him as well, and it just shows him. Yeah. In there. And like I say, he won league titles with Juventus. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many games he played, but he played into the hundreds, nearly 200 games for Juventus. Yeah. You came back and played, like I say, Leeds and Cardiff and things like that. Just a phenomenal player, but he never got, hardly. I don't think he ever got booked, if I remember rightly, or he hardly ever got booked. Bit of a Lineker character, and yet put his body anywhere and everywhere. Yeah, you see old clips of him and stuff like that, and you see interviews, from him, and what a man, what a guy, and he's got to go in there somewhere. Yeah. You can't. He's the greatest Welsh player. Forget the likes of Rush and these kind of players, who were brilliant players, outside of Gareth Bale, in Welsh folklore, then, let's say. So who else we got there?
Billy Bremner next.
Billy Bremner was a bit of a funny one for me because I wanted a Scot in there. I wanted to put a Scot in there, and Leeds, the Leeds side of the 70s, I could have.
I take it as an Everton fan, Dalglish never entered the head.
Never, not at all. Not as phenomenal and tremendous as he was a player. Never entered my head, and he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Billy Bremner, I could have quite as easily have been a Leeds fan, because a little bit earlier than when I really got into football, the two big teams were Leeds and Liverpool. And for some reason, I was never drawn to Liverpool, as good as they were back then. But Leeds, a lot of the older boys where I used to live, they used to support Leeds. And there was always arguments between Leeds and Liverpool. And I just thought, I just want something for me.
Yep.
But I could have quite easily have been Leeds out the two teams. But I used to, I watched the Leeds team, and they were very. I know it sounds bizarre. This is a team that won a league in 1969. I think it was 70. Was it 73 they won the league, or 73 I think they won the league?
Early 70s, 1970 they reached the semi-final European Cup.
They did. They also got through to the final of a UEFA Cup, or did they win a UEFA Cup?
I think they won a UEFA Cup. I think
I was about 72, was it?
Early 70s, yes.
They won an FA Cup final. They got through to an FA Cup final against Sunderland. Obviously, we remember what happened there.
Yep.
But I mean, it's a tremendous side with great players. But they was always known as being a bitch of a side to play against. They were always rough and tough and no one tougher than say maybe John Giles or Billy Bremner.
Yep.
But they could play. They could really play. They had Jack Charlton. They had players like Lorimer, Peter Lorimer, hardest shot in football at the time, 100 miles now. He's the first one with that kind of ball.
Yeah.
100 miles, Scott as well. You had the Gray brothers, Eddie and Frank Gray. Then you had Sniffer Clark up front, Alan Clark.
Don Review's manager.
And Billy Bremner, who's the glue that held it all together. He's, kind of your midfield, and again, Rottweiler, the had more ability than people give him credit. And you could put him in a holding midfield role as well. Now, I looked at players like Pirlo. I even looked at Kante, because I know you like Pirlo a lot, I looked at Kante and players like this and some other players playing a holding midfield role. Bremner could do that.
Yep.
But he could play anywhere in that midfield. And he was brilliant. It's no wonder Leeds got a statue up of this man,
Yeah.
Because what he did for that club and what
Captain Scotland, I'm pretty sure as well.
Yeah. But he's iconic. He had that red hair.
Yes.
And he was just an iconic looking.
He just looked hard as well.
Yeah.
Didn't he? You wouldn't have messed with Billy Bremner.
No,
looking at
definitely.
him like no chance.
He's not. He's a. If you're talking to cult heroes, maybe he's a cult hero in Scotland, but for Leeds, he's just a hero. And I loved that Leeds side. I remember them. I remember playing against Southampton. There's clips you can get on YouTube against Southampton, and they pass this ball around, and they're doing little back heels and flicks through the legs and whatever. And there's not Olays, because they weren't coming in at that time, but the crowd are cheering, yay, yay. And they must have strung, what looked like hundreds of passes, and Southampton just couldn't get anywhere near them. And that's how good that team was.
Yeah.
They were phenomenal. They're my favourite side out of Everton,
Yeah.
to watch, and I remember. Brilliant.
Magic. Okay, I'm excited for the next one. Aside from Henrik Larsson, my favourite player of all time is Zinedine Zidane. I just think there's no weakness in the man's game. He could do everything. Would watch him over the team any day. I don't know if you've seen a portrait of Zidane on YouTube, the documentary that was made about him.
I haven't, no.
There's 30 cameras that follow him on the football pitch, and they all just follow him, and it's set to like some really nice music, and it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. But graceful player, just the technique for me alone, the first touch, the vision to play the game, is. Do you think he's underrated?
Well, I don't think I need to say anything. No.
Yeah,
you've just said it. I think he's. You invited me here, then you talk yourself,
I think he's criminally underrated.
I don't know. I don't know about underrated. I think he's held up in high esteem. I don't know about underrated, but everything you've said, I've said finesse and elegance like a lot today. When I'm talking about Cruyff and even Best as well, and these players. but he just had everything, didn't he?
Yeah.
And even in that '98 World Cup, where I first really took notice of him, I saw it.
Same. That was my first World Cup, I remember.
Yeah, you looked at him and you had the likes of Henry. I know Henry got injured, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Who were the kind of big superstars at that point.
R9 and...
Yeah. Whereas, he stood head and shoulders above everyone else. You wanted to watch him. You were fascinated by him. And it's his ability. His ability to turn on a sixpence, then, let's say, as we used to say in the old days.
Yep.
He just turning, and like you say, that Marseille turn now that he's he perfected, and everyone's following and watching and looking at, and everyone does it in the game now. But yeah, I mean, you see him against you see him in that cup final. That volley that he does in the cup
actually
final.
got the programme for that
there,
final
against Leverkusen, and other things with him. He's just ability is like no one else's.
Yeah.
And you see how he could take a game by the scruff of the neck and just completely turn it around. And brilliant for Juventus prior to Real Madrid as well. People forget that. I think he was at Saint Etienne as well, was he not? Or was he
Saint Etienne, and then he was at Bordeaux.
Bordeaux, of course, he was at Bordeaux. Yeah. Saint Etienne, Bordeaux, there at Juventus. I mean, did it everywhere he went. It was just I've heard you talk about this in another podcast, but it was such a shame that it was the way he kind of left the game pretty much with that headbutt on Materazzi. At that time.
I think people also forget though, he in that World Cup final, Panenka a penalty.
Of course,
over Gianluigi Buffon, who's the greatest goalkeeper in my opinion of all time. Apart from Neville Southall, sorry, Ian, sorry, but and up until that headbutt, he was having one of the games of his career.
Oh yeah.
He was having one of the games of his career.
And that stands to, that don't even need to say anything about that. But what a stupid thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And I don't even think Materazzi actually said anything that bad.
I don't think so. No, I think it was an overreaction, but I also think that's the maverick in him. Yeah. That's the maverick. That's a special bit of player that thinks, I don't care if this is the World Cup final, this is the last game of my career. I'm not going to let you away with that. Yeah. Down you go.
Well, we said no. I mean, Materazzi, he played for Everton, funny enough.
Yes, he did.
He didn't play that many games. I think it was a season, was it?
That was quite early in his career as well.
Yeah, it was early in his career. But you even noticed it in him then that he had that kind of stuff in him, and he's just out there to wind him up, and he knows exactly what he's doing. Of course, he does. That's why he's aimed for Zidane. So you see, Zidane, he's sensitive, isn't he? Yeah. You can see it in his managerial technique as well. He's sensitive to certain things and stuff like that, and he's just pinpointing an area of weakness in Zidane. So if there's not an area of weakness in the game and in his play, then I'm going to find an area of weakness in his personality. Mm-hmm. Not his mentality in football, his mentality in play, but his mentality on kind of how he can take a bit of sledging, as they say in cricket terms.
Yeah.
It was a shame, but. He's just unbelievable.
We've spoke a bit about Gareth Bale and Bob Latchford. I'm actually going to go back into your defence because we missed out Kevin Ratcliffe and Gary Stevens.
Yeah. I'll skim over Gary Stevens. You've been a Celtic fan,
I'm quite happy to speak about him because my dad says he was a good player.
Oh, he was phenomenal. But what it was is that as good as he was for Rangers, he was never as good for Rangers and he was brilliant for Rangers, but he was never as good for Rangers as he was for Everton. Because the combination of Gary Stephen and Trevor Stephen, they were just it was telepathic down that right flank there, just telepathic. He was a good player, Gary Stephen, but.
And this is before names on shirts. It's not like players were getting mixed up with the two.
No, not at all. And there was another Gary Stephen as well. There was Gary Stephen for Tottenham at the time.
Yes,
who was in the England side and stuff like that. But no, it was absolutely telepathic between the two. It was brilliant to watch, and the way they interacted. The only thing I can compare in an Everton shirt was a few years back when we had Baines and Pina. On the opposite flank, left flank, they had kind of like a telepathy. And when Pina shot off to Tottenham, you could see in down that side we were lacking something and we were missing something. And then he came back to Everton, picked up again with Baines, and you could just see it worked.
Yeah,
it worked there. They were exactly the same, but they were on a next level from those two.
It's a bit of a throwback. Leighton Baines, he was frightening for a couple of years in that Premier League. He was one of the best left backs.
Yeah, and then you got who was the other one? Did I put down?
Kevin Ratcliffe.
Kevin Ratcliffe. Oh, you can't say anything about Kevin Ratcliffe. Wales captain at the time. captain throughout that brilliant era. Just a solid, skillful, yeah, I'll love to make him my wife at some stage. That's about it, really. I mean, he's brilliant. I don't know what to say.
Okay, I'm going to do my corporate stuff, and then I'll go for my last question. Okay, so over the last couple of weeks, we've been gaining massive popularity.
All right, don't rub it in.
I'm just kind of. I'm really thankful. We've had hundreds of people listening to this podcast. We're getting quite a few reviews. I did say if we get to 25-star reviews, we'll do a like and share giveaway. It's going to be quite a big one. To be fair, I can't give away too much details just now, but I've got an international football player coming on in the next couple of episodes. So it's going to be something associated with that.
He got big shoes to fill now, and
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And potentially someone that we mentioned today.
And potentially someone we mentioned today as well.
Right, okay.
That you would definitely want to tune in for, Ian, because a big Evertonian.
Yes.
Nice, okay.
So there's
we're not going to say who it is yet.
We're not going to say because there's things in the works. But thank you if you can follow the podcast, give us a 5-star review if you enjoyed it. Check us out on Facebook, give us a wee like and follow, give us a wee comment, let us know that you're interested, and there'll be a poll on this episode as well. Thank you for coming along, Ian. You're
welcome, mate.
That's been a fascinating journey, because I didn't realise how you've got a great memory for football. Like, you can remember specific games, goals. Not a lot of people do. My last number 4 Belder, he was pretty good. He remembered quite a lot of games and goals. This is where I have to do a lot of research on.
Oh, that's fine, yeah. No. It's just because I'm old, mate. That's why I've got to do the research, because that'll
maybe come to me then. I'm getting old. My final question is, there's I've got one question, but I changed it slightly. One penalty to save your life.
Oh, I saw this on one of your previous podcasts, right? And I was racking my brains. And then I just came up with an absolute peach and just thought, of course, it has to be Matt Le Tissier.
Oh, what a shout.
Yeah.
What a shout.
46 out of 47 penalties scored. Just brilliant. I not just with his penalty taking, right? The guy was so overrated because he was gangly, right? Mm-hmm. He looked lazy. There was another player like that, which was Waddle, right? And they look gangly, they look awkward. But what phenomenal players. But Matt Le Tissier, if he was at any other club, he would have got 100 caps.
Yes.
There's no question of that. You watch what the guy did. Every goal, as I heard Ryan say earlier, was a worldie. And his ability. And he stepped up to that penalty. And there's only one place he was going. The only surprise to me is he missed one.
Yeah.
That's the only surprise. Not that he scored all the others.
For a man that didn't train much either. Just natural ability.
And that's what we talk about Mavericks. I think he was brilliant. I mean, the goals he scored. We talk about Zidane. We talk about Zidane and Bale's goals and stuff like that. But Le Tissier's goals. You watch them on YouTube. Have you seen them all?
Yeah.
They're
Premier League years is full of him.
They're ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're nuts. It's like, how's he done that?
Mad that he stayed at Southampton his entire career as well.
Exactly.
It just shows you the kind of mentality and strength of character and the loyalty of the man, and that's why he's loved down there. Absolutely loved. I think he was a tremendous player and so underrated. But yeah, there you go. 46 out of 47, Matt Le Tissier.
Excellent answer. Okay, thank you.
Before we go, Lee, not to kind of put you on the spot here on camera, but Pam, who we had on the North East Corner back in May,
yes,
her fundraiser is starting for the Cash for Christmas.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was saying to her, because she got back in touch to see she was going to set up something here with like a mutual friend to advertise it and that.
Yep.
But it didn't work out, so I said that we could potentially run an ad when it gets going on the football journals. Obviously.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy. If anyone wants to get in touch with me, if they want to run any ads on the football journals, I'm quite happy. We'll come to some sort of discussion. But yeah, definitely for Cash for Kids. It's getting that time of year.
Yeah.
And
Christmas is approaching.
Yeah. Okay.
What is this, episode 5 in the book?
This is
now?
episode 5. We hope to get to about episode 8 to 10 before Christmas. We'll do a little break at Christmas and then we'll hit the ground running again in January.
Awesome. We're wrapping there.
Yes, we are, mate.
Boom.